Good morning, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Two Dudes in a Safety Podcast. This is the podcast where we delve into the world of safety, emergency response. I'm your host, Corey, and as always, I'm joined by Dave. Right? How are you, Dave?
I'm doing good, Corey. How are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Today, we actually have, for our listeners, we got a different episode where we've got the privilege of interviewing an exceptional professional with a strong background in safety and emergency medical services, including firefighting. So please welcome TJ to the show. Good morning, TJ. We're thrilled to have you here. How are you doing today? And just give us a brief background of yourself.
Good afternoon, Corey, Dave. Excited to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my journey, my experiences, and some of the insight that I have with health and safety. So, from a young age, I had a burning passion to help other people and serve others, and that passion led me down a career of public service. That career of public service started when I was 13, and I joined the fire department as a volunteer junior firefighter, so to speak. And so throughout my time doing that, my time in school, I attended various trainings and earning certifications while I attended high school. And from high school, I started working for various ambulance services that ultimately led me to earning a position with a career department, and worked as a career fireman for a number of years, and working with a fire department that was extremely proactive. And one of the things that they were proactive with was the technical rescue team, and I got to be a part of their technical rescue team and learn a lot about the different types of technical rescues, and a lot of which that we see today on our job too. With those department, they were pretty proactive in community engagement. So a lot of that would involve going to various manufacturing plants and teaching different types of health and safety classes to their workers. And it was a great thing that I got to do. And along the way, I worked with a lot of great men and women in the trade, and I learned a lot from them. I'm extremely grateful for the time I got to spend in that. And what little bit of time I got to spend in that, I did a lot of teaching and instructing in fire and EMS. One of the things I enjoy teaching the most was, firefighter survival and rescue, and touch on that a little bit later on, is why that was one of my favorites as I transitioned into the career as a safety professional. But it was a good time. So after I left the fire service, I worked in a poultry processing plant that saw something in me that I didn't even see. They sent me to a lot of leadership development courses and a lot of safety classes to help get me to that next step, to promote within and be one of their managers. However, my life decided to go a different direction when I started a business, and business just didn't work out for me. So as I'm sitting in bed trying to figure out what I'm going to do, I'm thinking, man, I think it's time to put what I've learned over the years and put it to some use. So which led me down a career in environment, health, and safety, and worked for some third-party safety folks that and earned a position as a safety manager at a local division. That's where I'm currently at. So it's been a journey. It's been ups and downs, but it's been good. So appreciate you asking.
Yeah, man. Wow. That's some fantastic stories there. So,
Yeah.
Dave and I kind of have the same background too with a third-party consultant. So, at one point, I remember I was doing shutdowns and turnarounds. I was on 3 different payrolls because they would never have constant work. I would call up one company, "Hey, man, we ain't got nothing today." So, I think consulting really gives you a strong background and thick skin, because you're not at the same place every day.
Right.
For years. You don't have an opportunity to develop those relationships, and you're constantly meeting new people,
Right.
which means you're constantly on your guard, and you got to figure out how to interact with these new individuals that had just come into your life, right?
Yeah, definitely. It can be challenging, and that was probably one of my bigger struggles working as third party safety, is that you come into an area and you see this opportunity, you see the things that could be done to maybe improve things, or just a different way of seeing it. And it's just trying to get the buy-in of those folks to maybe implement some of that change. So it can be tough. And also we see third party safety folks come in on outages and shutdowns, and some of those guys might come in with a different attitude and be able to stir that pot, so to speak, and be able to walk away and not have much
Hmm.
Yeah.
care in the world. But it was
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. And the other, I guess you could piggyback off interesting is the travelers, dude. Some
Oh
of those travelers don't care. I
no,
don't care what you do. I'll drag up right now and have a job
yeah,
before I leave here.
That's
right,
right. I've heard that so many times.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
Yeah.
so those individuals that have that mentality are really hard to buy into your safety culture, especially if you're the
right,
base guy, right? So
right,
it's very the psychology of safety is really what, or just essentially the psychology of people is really
yeah,
what interests me. What makes that person tick, and what makes this person tick? Like, why does this one has been doing it for 30 years, but is okay with change as new safety technology and new safety policies come out.
right,
Things change for the better, and this person here has been doing it for 30 years is okay with the change. But this
right,
person here still wants to rebel like they're a little 14-year-old trying to get out of the parents, mommy and daddy's basement. You know what I mean? So that psychology is really interesting to me. So
right.
um, go ahead, Dave. You got any questions for him or?
Yeah. Talking to you before this, we mirror a lot of each other. I started out
Right.
in the fire service and EMS, and with what I've taken personally from fire and EMS, and like Corey said, the psychology you deal with, each call is different when it comes to EMS and things like
Right.
that, and bringing that to safety for me almost felt just like hand in glove
Right.
because,
Yeah.
like Corey said, it's a psychology kind of thing. You get on site, you're not only the new guy, you're the new safety guy.
Right.
So it's is he going to be a dick or they? Is he going to be cool? How strict is he going to be? And all this stuff. And so you've got to work with that. And
Right.
so how have you found being a EMT firefighter in that situation and bringing that to a new site as the safety guy?
You know, what I've learned, throughout this journey is that the two careers, they mesh well together in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, they don't. Let's just say, my sense of urgency and my OCD and my attention to detail, others may not have the same characteristics, and it's tough to get their buy-in. So if you have a health and safety hazard that was recognized needs to be addressed immediately, whereas they might feel like there might be some time there, to we'll get to it. They may not feel much of priority to correct that, or my our paperwork, our work packet is what I refer to it as, our JSA, and all the associated paperwork is consistent. You have a permanent required confined space. Documentation is consistent with your JSA and those types of hazard analysis. So,
Hmm.
and the mitigation for that. So, that can be. That attention detail can oftentimes be one of the biggest struggles. But I found that there's been some things that have helped win the hearts and minds, so to speak, of others. Lessons learned go a long way. You know,
Hmm.
being the responder there for after the incident and kind of cleaning up after that, using those lessons learned, like, hey, I was part of this one time and this happened because of this, and it
Right.
kind of helps bring a
Right.
better understanding. It's something that, that they can relate to in a way. Complacency is one of the biggest things that, we face out there on the job sites. Guys get too used and just too comfortable, and they forget that there's some real risk associated with what they're doing. And
Hmm.
so it has helped a lot. So it's helped me become a better safety professional. But and I've been trained throughout my career to be able to recognize things and be able to assess situations quickly and prioritize what needs to be done, and provide that immediate care if needed, or rescue if needed. So, I love who I work for now. I love my boss, and one of the things he'll tell you is that I need to kind of slow down a little bit from time to time, and maybe prioritize a little bit better. And so him not coming from that background,
Mm-hmm.
it might look to him from the outside looking in, there might be some chaos, but to me, it's controlled, right? I'm proactive, not reactive. I'm in control, whereas I'm not in control. So,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of benefits from
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
helping me be a better safety guy.
So, if you don't mind, Dave, I got a quick. First of all, quite the you're quite the wordsmith. If I ever need a big group and a
Be a
speaker,
translator if
you're
nothing
more
else.
than welcome to come on board, man. You know.
Oh,
But you said something that I actually wrote down a question. Yeah, I, my accent ain't that bad now. Come on, come on.
Oh my.
Used to when I had the gap between my teeth, it was bigger. You could hear me whistle, but as I gotten older, it's kind of closed in, I guess. But you said something that I was wanting to ask you about anyway. So this is a great segue into it. And you talked about being proactive versus reactive. As an emergency service, there's really nothing you can do out there for the community except wait and get that response. And then once you hear that phone call, you got to jump immediately. Versus
right.
if you're a firefighter or EMT, whatever it is, and then you go help and try to get there as fast as you can to save that life. Versus now in the safety world that you're in, that we got the opportunity to be more proactive
Right.
to prevent these things. So what's your thoughts on that, and how much do you see that to be true versus your background to where it was more reactive versus what you're at now and you're able to be proactive?
It's been as personally, it's been a tough change. Being where I was always reactive, my brain was just always kind of on that I was always that heightened state of awareness, so to speak. To where now, we're in more of the being proactive, not reactive. So things are like processing things have really slowed down for me, and it's been a struggle. But we start to see, the proactiveness when we are doing our JSAs, job walkdowns, our human performance tools, using those to help. And, we see that a lot, and we use it, and it really does prevent a lot of injuries and accidents. And the unfortunate part, we're not able to see how much that really does help. A lot of times we as safety professionals, sometimes we get complacent, and we get complacent on the fact that we're doing all these things to be proactive, but we're not really seeing much on the other end of that, how that really did help. How do we measure that and that kind of thing. So I think I see with the being proactive, not reactive, and not being able to really to see the benefit of that. Sometimes it kind of it bogs down, guys. They get a little complacent from time to time. They're like, oh, it's okay. Go ahead and start that job. You don't need that JSA. You don't need to do that
Yep.
tailgate. So I've seen, both sides of it. And long story short, being proactive, it's something that we all actively do. But at what point, are we being proactive to the point to where guys are becoming complacent?
So yeah, that's it. You ended that perfect, because that's kind of like the follow up I had. Do you think being proactive on our side allows us to not get complacent and on the when the rubber meets the road and it's really time for us to either get somebody from that just fell off and is hanging in their harness, or somebody that had a serious laceration, or somebody that was doing a blowdown and a piece of valve busted and knocked them smooth out.
Right.
In your EMT service, you know what you're going into, so you're able to prepare yourself for what you need, how you need to handle that, and then plus you've got other first responder team with you. Versus us now on the safety side, we're trying to be proactive and tell them, hey, do all your walk downs, make sure that the valve checks are right, you got your whip checks, you got your Carter pins inside your crow foot, and you're using somebody experienced on that air compressor versus somebody that, say on the union side, an apprentice, or even someone that's younger than an apprentice. Where do you feel your best attack is Is it being proactive and try to fuel everything and have complete transparency on the front, or waiting for it to happen? Do you think you're able to save somebody's life easier after it happened?
Right. That's a great question. And I'm sure a lot of folks can make some good arguments for that. But at the end of the day, I think we need to be, being proactive. If we broke down proactive and reactive, right, I think we need to break them both down, bring them both together, if that makes sense, right? So
Yeah.
we're being proactive in the way that when we're doing a JSA, it's not just your safety tech, safety manager, your safety professional. It is a JSA that is put together by the entire group doing the job, or at the very least, the operations management prior, to the job. Right. So, and then all too often we build JSAs and we don't even walk the job down, and we put them together, and that's done day after day after day. Those types of habits and behaviors, that's what starts to build your complacency. And guys will stop reading them, stop doing the pre-job briefings, and stop, intentionally paying attention to what they're supposed to be doing. So as you're putting together these programs, hazard recognition, so on and so forth, you're building your JSAs. They're built as a team, right? As a safety professional, one of the struggles that I have had coming in from fire and EMS public service to being a safety professional is my lack of knowledge within the trade. And that lack of knowledge within the trade is not good. So one of the things that I have found that has helped me become more proficient in that is that the JSAs, we build them together, because there's going to be questions I'm going to have that I'm not going to be able to answer. There's going to be things that they won't be able to answer, but doing it as a team and doing it together and putting it together for that particular job, not having a blanket JSA just to cover it. Well, I think
just kind of cover the bases. Yeah.
So we're just going to throw this in there just in case. No, stop, build that JSA to what you're actually going to do. If it's right, if the scope of work changes throughout that job, work stops. You stop, adjust your paperwork, have that pre-job briefing, reevaluate, make sure everybody's under the same understanding of what's going to happen, and then be able to get back to work. And there's a lot of reasons why we do that. And one of the things that I like being able to do that for is, whenever you come up on a job and you're doing, an audit, so to speak, and you come up to a gentleman or a female and they're not following what's within that JSA, and you can walk up to them and say, hey, I need some understanding. I see on the JSA we're supposed to do X, Y, Z, but I notice you're not doing X, Y, Z, right? So, that JSA that is correct, at the end of the day, it's kind of what we're going to be held accountable to. And it's what we're going to hold other folks accountable to. There's a lot of jobs I might walk up on, and I may not have working knowledge of that scope of work. So I'm going to refer to that JSA to give me that information that I need to, at the very least, to be on their site, to be safe, right? So, again, with the long-winded answer to your question, I think that we need to take the proactive and the reactive and try to bring them close together, right? So, one of the things I like to see on our JSAs is stop work criteria. If this happens, then we stop work, and then leave a couple blank spots. So during that pre-job briefing, they can identify some other stop work criteria and list it on there. But also, too, if there's an emergency, what do? Who do we notify? Where's the closest eye wash station? Where's the closest first aid station? Who do we notify in case of emergency? So you get kind of best of the both worlds, proactive, reactive. You know what to do in case of emergency. We're planning for the best and hoping for the best. But in case of emergency, we do X, Y, Z.
All right. Gotcha. Excellent. I mean, I think that's one of the better answers.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Could say. Dave, what would you say on that?
Perfectly.
You've got the same background.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of companies and a lot of safety people kind of want to play it, say, well, this is your lane. This is our lane. This is what you do. And I think a lot of safety people don't realize that it's got to be a team effort. Again, if you're a third party, you're not going to know everything about what they do, but you need to educate yourself and you need to talk to your people. Okay. What is it going to take to get this task done? And then you break it down with them. Have them explain it to you, and then have you explain, how we're going to do it safely and get everybody on the same page. And, PTPs, JHAs, is a living document. It's going to change. So when it does change,
Right.
that's when you stop and then you reevaluate. Okay, so this task is going to change in this way. Okay, so
Right.
safety has to adapt to that. I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people in concrete say this is what we're going to do and then leave it.
Right.
And then when a task comes up that changes, they're not following the JHA, the PTP, whatever.
Right.
And I think a lot of safety guys go, well, I mean, they're close. And that's not, being that proactive, um, and even, well, reactive, but, we want to be proactive. That proactive part is being on top of that and knowing exactly when a task is going to change and adjusting safety to that new uh, approach to that task. So yeah, I mean that's exactly right. And coming from EMS, we've seen some unfortunate accidents, some bad things that have happened. So me personally, I can almost envision something extremely bad happening, no matter what if it's, using a hammer, the damage it could do if it's not used correctly. And then obviously, bigger equipment and tools. And so I kind of play it backwards. Okay. This is the worst thing I could imagine it happening. How can we stop that from happening? Yeah.
Right.
So, Dave, to that answer, it just made me think of another question for both of y'all. Right. So, TJ and Dave, one of the, I guess mainly for TJ, because Dave, you and I know how we work. What do you feel, TJ, one of the main challenges is for fostering a culture of safety within the organizations? Because you've been a consultant too, so we discussed that earlier about meeting different groups who's got that click already formed, and now you're the new person that's just there for 6 to 9 weeks trying to make sure that they don't do anything wrong or hurt themselves. Now,
Right.
my question on top of that question is for y'all two. What did y'all do as a firefighter or even in EMT? Did y'all do anything like a JHA pre-job briefs when you knew that you were fixing to go out to a call? Somebody got injured, there was a house fire, or there was a shooting, or there was a major car accident. Do y'all do JHAs and know where each person on your crew is going to be? Like, what's the difference between construction safety with the JHA or JSA, PTPs, whatever you call them at your job site, versus the emergency service and the first responder teams that come out and handle a severe situation? How do y'all know where people's going to be, what your role is going to be, what the hazards are within there, and how are you mitigating and using the hierarchy of controls to protect yourself when you're helping somebody?
We never,
And I'll
well,
let y'all two y'all go right at it.
we never had a JHA. We
Go
never,
ahead, Dave. How'd you
nothing
guys
was ever
handle that?
clear cut. I mean, we just trained a lot when it came to extrication out of cars. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. And that was kind of the, and not to interrupt you, but that's kind of I was, that's really the answer I was hoping for.
Right.
Because in the safety professional world, we don't get training like that a lot. We'll do our emergency response training, like severe weather. We'll just
Emergency
throw it out
action
there to the
plan,
crew and
kinda,
make sure
yeah.
they know where their muster points are if we're trying to do a chemical release or something like that, or if it's a tornado, we'll make sure they know. But y'all train constantly. So a lot of y'all's protection or mitigation comes down to muscle
Yeah.
memory.
Right.
Okay.
Fight like you train, train like you fight.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said. So, and the thing of it is, you take that same type of mentality, so to speak, you apply it to EHS. Goes back to what we referred to a little bit ago: complacency and just our job safety analysis and building those to the job at hand versus building it to cover anything, so that I think that is one
Yeah.
of the bigger
And
differences
and then the
that you'll see between the two. So
Yeah. So now another follow up
no,
question
I was
with
just going to
that.
say, in the fire service,
Go ahead,
it's
Dave.
broken down to even like time. We would get, we would like tones would go off 3:30 in the morning, and it
Mm-hmm.
was out of bed, in your gear, in the truck.
Yep.
Then you find out it was a drill, and the chief would have a stopwatch going. Nope, you guys could do better.
right,
And then it could
Damn.
be the next day at 1 o'clock in the
yeah,
afternoon, tones go off. You
right. What was
whatever
it?
you're doing, get in your gear, get in the truck. That was better. And then it could be 2-3
Mhm.
days later or another shift that 2 o'clock in the morning, tones go off, much better. And so it was broken down even to how fast you could get into your gear, into the truck, and ready to roll. And so that part of it just got to the point where you were constantly ready,
Right. Yeah, we
no
got
matter if you're in the bathroom taking a shower, you were ready. Yeah.
right.
So how do you think?
Yeah.
So how do you think you can incorporate? So if you separate it, TJ, to your point earlier with the question I asked you about proactive and reactive, you want to break it
Mhm.
down but combine them. How could you break down?
Yeah.
From what I'm understanding, what y'all two went through is more physical training,
Right.
Yeah.
right? You're getting that muscle memory going. When you hear
Hmm.
something, it's like Pavlov's dogs, right? When
Right.
they heard the bells, they started salivating because they were fed constantly.
Hmm.
So
Right.
that moves. Now, how do you think we could break down, bring together the physical training? Do you think that doing a JHA every morning or your pre-task huddle is a form of um, mental training or something to the fact that what y'all did as a first responder to where it just becomes second nature? Do you think we could make a JHA in a way that it becomes second nature if we start verbally? And TJ, you said it great. Also, we're building this thing together. So if we keep
Hmm.
building it together every day, do you think that could be a form of training, or do you think it's just completely opposite?
No, I mean, I think it'd be a formative training if it's done right. Okay, so I'm sure we'll bring up later on that safety folks are not the gatekeepers of safety. So, what I envision for a JSA needing to be built or a JSA, being reviewed prior to start of the job, but what I envision is everybody takes part in that, right? So, if what I envision is being done, I think that helps
No,
a
I
lot
agree.
with
I
those things.
think,
Yes.
um,
Dave?
and I've fallen into this category as well, which a lot of safety people do, is you get in that kind of a routine where you do your morning huddle. Okay, this is what you're going to do. Here's the hazards. Here's the mitigation. Next day, here's what we're going to do. Here's the hazards. And I think even taking the ideas from fire service and EMS, and breaking it down. And when Corey, whenever you and I work together, we would have the employees tell us not just the tasks, but what are the hazards, and then we'd talk to somebody else. Okay, what are some mitigations that we're going to get them involved, get kind of
Yeah.
get their mind ready for the day, to where they're thinking, okay, these are the hazards, these are the mitigations. But I mean, in a perfect world, I think,
Right.
training, saying, okay, Tuesday, we're going to have, somebody simulate somebody getting a laceration, okay, so-and-so got a laceration. The guys around him, what are you going to do? Who you going to contact? Who's going to get the first aid kit? And train in that way. Not only, okay, does everybody know where the first aid kit
Yeah.
is? Does everybody know who's going to be contacted first, second, third, fourth, all the way down? Who is first aid trained? Who's going to dress that wound, all all that. I think in construction, I think we kind of do the word service, and again, I think it needs to be done because TJ, you know as well as I do, when something chaotic's happening, you forget everything you've learned if you're new. I mean, okay, somebody just collapsed. They're not breathing.
Right.
They don't have a
Right.
pulse. What do? You
Right.
look around and you got a bunch of deer staring at you going, I don't know. I don't know. Even though most of them are CPR trained, they're
Right.
trained, but when it comes down to it, they're like,
Right.
shit, what do I do? So I think, taking that mental and physical, putting it into training, I
Right.
think would benefit a lot of companies and a lot of, well, a lot of employees.
It's
Right.
great information, Dave. Great information. And you made me think of something. I'd like to ask both of y'all because of what you just said. Dave, do you remember your first call and what you forgot? Were you that deer when everybody else around you was asking, "Hey, I need gauze"? Or
We're
and TJ, what about your first call? Do you remember your first call? Because you said you started
I would
at
say that's, yeah.
13 years old,
Yeah.
so that had to be something very like.
Right. So at 13 as a cadet, you're not, you're not allowed to respond. So, I mean, it was,
Oh, okay. Well, your
so, I
first
mean,
response.
yeah, as a cadet, you're kind of like the junior ROTC kind of thing, So, but uh,
Yeah.
but to your point though, yes, my first call, yeah, I didn't, I froze. I mean, I think that's an environment that people aren't just inherently ready for, if that makes any sense. So,
Yeah.
I think it's something you got to be trained
Yeah.
for, and you know, yeah, I
I don't remember
definitely was
we're talking 20
not
plus
ready for
years. My
it.
first
Yeah.
call.
Dave, do you remember your first call?
Wow. Buddy, you are so lucky you're
I
out of state.
figured because you look a little bit older than
You
TJ, so
wait
I
till
didn't
I
think
see
you'd
you,
be able
bud.
to
No.
remember your first.
No. Hey, yeah. I remember my first cardiac arrest on my own as the medic of the truck. I remember that, and I'll never forget that. That was one of those that you have
Okay.
to think quickly. I kept going back to the foundation, which is CPR. I mean, I was trying to, okay, I knew we had to get an IV. I knew we had to, excuse me, intubate him. I knew this, and okay, the first drugs, and this is and it was so just overwhelming. What's that?
Hang on.
Which one?
Hold on.
That's when
I've never
that's when they
heard
put the
that
tube
word.
down
What
your
does
throat
that
to
word
breathe
mean?
for you.
Antibate.
So yeah, yeah, you put that tube down their throat. So, and then you blow them a little
Oh,
balloon that's on the bottom
damn.
of it,
Okay.
and then you can breathe for them without it going into their stomach. It's just located just in their lungs. Because if you do CPR and you're doing mouth to mouth, you're actually pushing air into their stomach as well as their lungs, and so that's when they throw up. So this protects their airway so you can breathe for them. Just like in a hospital, if you have surgery, they'll intubate you and stuff like that.
Ah,
But no,
Yeah.
I knew all this stuff, and I was trying in
interesting.
my head, trying to find
Okay.
the sequence, and trying to get all this stuff done. And this was my first on my own as the medic in charge. I had a basic, so I had to not only think for me, but I had to think for him. And I mean, afterwards, I'm like, I don't know if this is for me. But I mean, as time went on, I started to get a lot more comfortable with it, and I was able to
Yeah.
uh, go through it. But no, I mean, just with that, and that's 2 years of going to paramedic school, and then going through that, thinking, "Holy shit, I don't know if I can do this." So so we bring it back to guys that um, we will have a CPR class for them for so many hours, and then 2, 3, maybe a year down the road, we expect them to know exactly what to do. or hey, we're going to go over our mustard point and what we're going to do in a fire. And then
Yeah.
say you don't have a fire on your site for months at a time. You expect them to remember that? So I think again, go back to that constant. We need to really put
Right.
training and safety and what to do if something happens, tornado, no matter what, fire, active shooter. Obviously, that's a issue now around the world. But what to do? Because once that's activated, you're going to get a lot of people. If you have a big site, you have a lot of people standing around going, "What do we do?"
Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
with
So
your JSAs, you know,
Mhm.
with our JSAs, we have that, right? So for that job in that work area, we know where the first aid station is, where eye wash is, mustard points, severe weathers, and things like that. So I think our
Mhm.
JSAs can arguably be made. An argument can be made. There's too much there, right? But as
yeah.
we've kind of discussed, things change so
Mhm.
frequently that um, we don't know, right? So we're through the pre-job briefing. Those are things that get discussed, and so my hope is that when others are doing JSAs or JHAs or whatever the work site refers to them as, like if you're
Mhm.
working in an area, I would hope that would be a topic of conversation of,
Right.
hey, this is where we're going to go. This is where if this happens, so on and so forth. So, but again, hmm,
Yeah. So great advice from both of y'all. And as we're coming to the end of this, what I'd like to ask, and I'd like both of y'all to hopefully answer, but what advice would you give somebody, TJ and Dave, that's coming from the medical field that looking to maybe get into the construction EH&S world from the emergency services, anything like
Go
that?
ahead,
Like,
CJ.
what advice would you give them?
um, for me, the advice I would give them is do your research, talk with other safety professionals in various trades and find a trade or health and safety topic that they're passionate about and make that kind of their niche. And don't get too focused on being the subject matter expert, so to speak, on every health and safety topic. Because quite
Right.
frankly, none of us are going to be proficient at every health and safety topic that we're going to face out on the job site. And part of that, I think, what makes us a good team as safety professionals is that I enjoy confined space. Dave might enjoy fall protection. So where I might be weak in fall protection, he'd be able to make up for that and be able to work together. But just
Yeah.
being patient and kind and asking more intentional questions, what and just being there, being out there where the rubber meets the road and working with your group. But just remembering they're not the gatekeeper to safety. Everyone's got to take ownership, and we must give them the tools that they need to be engaged and empower them to do their job. We can't do that for them, right? So, just working with people and just being cognizant that somebody may not have their safety glasses on, but instead of running them to the gate and getting their money, ask them like, hey, why don't you have them on? And you might find that the safety glasses that they're provided aren't providing adequate protection, or they may be less quality, and having a conversation of like, hey, I got a guy that's having issues with safety glasses. Turns out to an issue with everybody. Might have reduced eye injuries and more
Mhm.
compliance if
Mhm.
we went to a $2 pair of glasses versus $1, right?
Yeah.
And so anyhow, just find out what you're passionate about and going with that.
Well, those are exceptional words, wise words indeed. And, you know, once I'm sure we'll stay in touch after this. TJ, it was a pleasure to have you on. Great
Yeah,
meeting you and understanding your story, your background, and I'm a once you get to know us a bit more, I'm the same way with
Right.
that low hanging fruit. I won't go
right,
run somebody up the wall with glasses. And just
right.
to your point, It's exact. Man, these glasses suck. They don't fit. I was on a
Right.
job once where a GM would only allow me to wear or order one pair of earplugs, and I had to convince him that how stupid he was, because I even had surgery on one ear, my right ear, and that all earplugs don't fit my ear canal anymore. Like my left one is still good, but my right one, I got to have just certain kind of earplugs that'll go in and feel upright, because somehow it like shrunk or did something. So some people are different, and they won't wear stuff because it is uncomfortable, and then it makes you do your job more unsafe because you're having to deal with this. It's like having an extra large shirt when you're a medium. Or Dave's been working out. He's a schmedium now, but
I'm gonna get a shirt that says that.
but anyways, TJ, really appreciate it, man.
A schmedium.
You look like a schmedium. That's like a new species of something. So, but TJ, again, man, really appreciate you taking the time out of doing this, and
of course,
again, enjoyed your story. I've learned from you. I know Dave has, and I hope you.
Well, I mean,
you didn't really.
I mean, you might have learned something, but it's kind of hard to
I just
navigate through his accent.
Just ask questions
to exactly what Corey's saying. You get a lot of twang.
So the only
right.
The one thing I got about this podcast service is I need the script with the little ball that we used to have in Saturday morning cartoons. That way everybody knows exactly what I'm saying when I'm saying it.
Knife. No, Corey, that's knife. You don't pronounce the K.
Right.
And then we can make, and then it all follows great.
To you.
People make fun of me. I say peel. It's a peel.
Right.
It's a, nobody knows. It's like, what are you doing?
Peeling paint?
Take
a peel.
I need some Advil. I'm hurting. I need a peel. So, speaking of bananas, this dude eats them sideways. He eats a banana like this.
I got my issues.
Never seen that shit before in my life.
Dang.
No. He eats them sideways. Yeah, he does. And it goes way beyond bananas. So, well, we'll go ahead and end it. And again, TJ, thanks a lot. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in.
All right. Everybody be safe
within the end of the week. And I hope y'all enjoy it as well.
All right. Thanks, guys, so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, hang on, TJ.